بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. In God's emissaries, we left off talking about Yusuf alayhi salam and his brothers, how they were jealous of Yusuf because the special relation that he had with his father, and they wanted to get rid of Yusuf. So they conspired together and they brought him near this well, and then they pushed him down in the well and brought back now they pushed him and then they left. So we left off at this part, and we said that they took a lamb and they slaughtered it, and they put the blood of the lamb on that abba, or the tunic that would belong to Yusuf. So they went back to their father with this story that they concocted to basically replace Yusuf and get the attention back to themselves, because they wanted attention. This seeking of attention is very dangerous. We see now that a lot of people want attention for themselves a lot, especially social media, for example. Everywhere you go, the people are just, I went one time, I just observed, I went to a cafe, like a Starbucks or somewhere, coffee place. I ordered coffee and I sat down. And I just saw the people with their phone and just taking a picture, take another picture this way, and make this. They look normal, and then when they take the picture, they put on a facade like they're so happy and their life is the best and all these things. But really, they are just trying to get the likes, and they portray one image on the social media, but in reality, their life is not that way. They seem very happy, but maybe they're very sad. And they're just trying to get attention and get likes, and they'll do anything to get this attention, that they would even try to take out any competitors that they had or anything. It can lead one down a very dangerous path to seek attention. We know that people's attention really doesn't matter. The thing that matters is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what you're doing and rewards you for your actions. It doesn't matter if anyone sees it. It's honestly better if no one saw it. I remember, one time a friend of mine, he helped another friend that I know, but he told me, he said, he needs this thing. Don't tell him it's from me. Just get it for him. And when he asks you, say, just a person helped. Don't give him the name. And then he's talking to the guy later. I said, man, someone helped me and they gave me this thing. May Allah bless them and all this. He said, man, that's great. He never said like, I'm the one who helped you. I did this for you. I did that for you, and this and that. That no one needs to know. So it's better this way. So we see that this seeking attention made the brothers of Yusuf, they wanted to get rid of Yusuf, all the way to the point where they killed their own brother. This is very, very dangerous. So we have to make sure that we are seeking the attention of Allah and not necessarily seeking attention from people. If we seek to please Allah, Allah will, a lot of times He will draw the people to you and make them like you and love you, But most of the time, people are just even willing to disobey Allah to get attention from other people. And they do rash and crazy things just so people will look at them. And they say, why would you do that? It's bad akhlaq, or what you did is very rude, or something we can say like shocking. Shock and awe, that's what they say, to like make everybody go, wow, did you see so and so, so and so, so and so? And then when the attention gets off of them a little bit, they do something else. Either they say something crazy or they do something crazy, and then everyone looks at them again and gets the attention. But it's not all about that, as long as we're working in the cause of Allah, we don't have to do some shocking thing to make people look at us. So this drove them to push Yusuf in the well. So they went back to Yaqub. So him to an embankment. And they said that he's lying there, soaking wet, down in this thing. He's crying on the embankment, praying to Allah. He said, O Lord of Ibrahim, Ishaq, Yaqub, have mercy on me in my weakness and my inability to help myself in my youth or my young age. Have mercy on me. I am not even able to help myself, even though I'm young. And he was down in this well for several days. Imagine being cold, damp, your clothes are wet, very miserable. Don't know if you're ever going to get out. Maybe you're dying in this place, or maybe someone sees you. You don't know. It says at one point, Jibreel came to Yusuf in the well, and he taught him a dua. He said, Ya Allah, I ask you because of all praise is due to you. There is no God but you. You are the compassionate, the merciful, the originator of the heavens and the earth, the possessor of might and honor. Send your blessings upon Muhammad and Ali Muhammad, the family of Muhammad, and make for me an escape from my current situation. And provide for me from where I expect it and where I don't expect it. So we see here that beautiful dua. And we see just as all the earlier prophets had done, he used the name of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam to remove the difficulty from himself. This was the sunnah of all the prophets. When we see in all of these chapters, we will see that they use the name of Ahlul Bayt. See, Ibrahim alayhi salam used the name of Ahlul Bayt to cool the fire. We see that Nuh used the name of Ahlul Bayt when he wanted the water to subside and the ark to settle. We saw that Adam alayhi salam used the names of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam when he turned towards Allah. So we see that this is continuing with Yusuf alayhi salam. And we will also see later with Yaqub, with Musa, with many of the prophets, they all use this name of Ahlul Bayt. So he made this dua. It says his 10 brothers reached home and they went to Yaqub crying. They were putting on a show crying. Yaqub gave them salam. He's asking them, why are you crying? Why don't I see Yusuf? Where is Yusuf? They said, oh, we left him, with our stuff, and a wolf ate him. They were racing, they said, and they were running, and they left Yusuf, and the wolf came and got him. But he said, you wouldn't believe us even if you thought we were truthful, and you think that we are liars, and it's out of the question to expect you to believe us. We know that you're not going to believe us anyway. This is from Quran, Surah Yusuf, ayat 17. He said, once again, they thought the best way to manipulate their father was through self-depreciation. That you won't believe me anyway. And then Judah, one of the brothers, brought the abba, or the tunic of Yusuf with blood all over it from the sheep and gave it to Yaqub. When Yaqub saw it, he fainted. He couldn't, he saw the tunic of Yusuf, thought the wolf ate his son, so he fainted when he saw the blood. When he woke up, he's holding this tunic, and he raised it to his face to kiss this tunic, this abba, but he stopped. He smelled it, and then he started looking at it. He had a very, this is like a quizzical expression on his face. So he turned to his sons and said, why don't I smell the scent of Yusuf on this abba? Why is there not even a tear in this abba? And he says, oh Allah, oh Allah, what kind of wolf it must have been that, it didn't even tear the abba. How did the wolf kill Yusuf? He didn't even rip the abba. What kind of wolf is this? And then he looked at his sons very sternly, and he knew that they had lied to him. So he told them, it's not as you claim, but you fooled yourself into doing something awful. This is in the next ayat, ayat 18. So he said, you have tricked yourselves, and you have done something very bad, and it's not what you say you have done, but it's something else. Then he said, but graceful patience will be my motto. And from Allah, I will seek help against what you allege. So Yusuf now is in this well for 3 days. He is tired. He is weak. He is, been crying and emotionally drained from being stuck in this place. He says with a sense of humility that the prophets have, he felt Allah hadn't answered his prayers only because he wasn't worthy. For example, this is the humbleness of prophets. Maybe I am not worthy for Allah to even answer my dua. So he cried out, Ya Allah, if my mistakes or my sins, they say sins, but they don't have sins, have dishonored me in your eyes and prevented my voice from rising up to you and prevented you from answering me, then I ask you through my father, Yaqub, have mercy on him in his weakness and bring us back together again, for you know how tender his heart is for me and how much I yearn for him. This is Surah Yusuf, ayah 15. It's a characteristic to be humble and never of the prophets, and they never see that they themselves of having worshipped Allah in the way that he deserves to be worshipped. They consider this a defect for themselves because they cannot worship Allah the way he deserves. No one can. I was speaking with a scholar yesterday, and he was telling us, he said once Allah told Musa alayhi salam to thank him. He said to Musa, he said, thank me in the way that I deserve to be thanked. Musa says, I cannot. I don't have ability. I can't do it. No one can thank you the way that you really deserve to be thanked. Then Allah told him, this is how you thank me in the way I deserve to be thanked. To acknowledge that you cannot. The acknowledgement of him not being able to do that is what Allah was saying, thank me in the way that I should be thanked. For us to come to the realization that we can never worship Allah the way he deserves to be worshipped. We can never worship, and we can never thank Allah the way that he deserves to be thanked. So I was asking him, how can we get closer to our Imam? Because, the time is so far away that in ghaiba that it keeps getting further removed. And when we read about companions of Imams, they're so high. And how could we even be like them? That they seem, when you read about them, Salman or Abu Dhar or any of these companions of Imam, how could we, we're not even dust under their feet. How can we be like them? And he said, from some narrations, the Imam says he wants you to try. As long as you are trying, he knows you cannot maybe reach this level, but you try. And this is what is counting, that you have the intention and you're trying your best to do what you can. So this is why we say that Dawood says, is humble and says, maybe I'm not worthy that you are not answering me. So at last Allah saw that he tested Yusuf's patience enough and gave him some glad tidings and said, you will disclose to them, your brothers, the reality of these deeds of theirs one day when they will not even recognize you because your state will be so much better than it is now. So with this prophecy, Yusuf understood that he would live to escape this moment from this prison that he is in under the ground in the well, and that his state would become very good, even more so than whatever his brothers would achieve. And eventually he would be reunited with his brothers because he will tell them about them. Well, we see that Yusuf, he recognized his brothers, but they didn't recognize him. And this is why we say that Imam Mahdi, Ajallah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif, one of the names is Yusuf al-Zahra, the Yusuf of Zahra. Because Imam Zaman, Ajallah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif, he recognizes everyone, but we don't recognize him. Just as Yusuf's brothers came and saw Yusuf, but they didn't know who Yusuf was. They didn't recognize him, but Yusuf knew very well who they were. This is the case with our Imam. He recognized us, but we don't recognize him because of the things we have done, for example. And this is why one of the scholars some years ago, he always told me to be good to everyone because you don't know who you're dealing with. Maybe you could be dealing with a companion of the Imam and you have no idea. Someone close to the Imam. You treat them bad because you don't recognize them and you don't know them. But you could be treating someone bad that he could be close to the Imam. Imagine if you didn't recognize the Imam and you were rude to the Imam of the time when he came to you. Imagine how bad that would be. On a lesser scale, reminds me of some scholars. They came to one of the centers. They said the person came out and was very rude to them. They had regular clothes on. What are you doing here? Why are you here? We don't want you and this and that. And they were very rude, said a lot of things. Okay, we came to, masjid and we were waiting on someone, and brushed them off and was very rude. So they just were nice with the person, and then they went and got dressed and waiting for the other person to come. Mama, labas, all the things on. And then later the majlis is there and they're sitting in the majlis, and that same person came and bringing the tea around, and then they see them and the eyes get very big, like, oh, I treated that person bad, and he's an alam, he's a scholar, Maulana. We don't know who we are, who we see in the street. So we always have to be careful not to oppress someone or treat someone bad, because we don't know. They could be, one of the awliya Allah. So he said some days later, around the midday 3rd of Muharram, from the narrations, Yusuf heard some sounds and while he was in the well. So a caravan came and they stopped, and they sent someone ahead of them, and they dropped the bucket down into the water to bring up some water for that caravan. So Yusuf heard them, and he saw the water bucket come down, and he started yelling up there, and they got very excited. They said, oh, we found someone in this well, let's get him out. So they pulled Yusuf out of the well. He hadn't eaten for 3 days. He's in the darkness for 3 days. They gave him food, they gave him clothes. After he got himself together, the leaders of the caravan were wondering, what should we do with this boy that we found? So they said that he must belong to some family in that area. But instead of doing the right thing and trying to find out where he was from, they said, we can make some money out of him. We can sell him as a slave. So they moved him while he was asleep, and they put him in one of the slave cages, so he didn't escape, and or his family doesn't come and claim him. So Yaqub, still Yaqub, he says he held true to his promise when he said that he would be patient, with a beautiful patience. He was gracefully patient, and he never complained about the trial that afflicted him. He mourned Yusuf. He knew he was alive, but he cried for Yusuf. But he never complained about being afflicted with a trial. When calamity falls on us, we do the opposite of what Yaqub did. We continuously complain and complain and complain about our trial. Everyone we know knows about our trial. Everyone in the city knows about our trial. Anyone we come in contact, we tell them about how much we are suffering and going through hard times and all of these things. But we should learn from the patience of Yaqub to have a practice patience, and a beautiful patience with no complaining, because inna Allaha ma'as sabirin, Allah is with the patient ones. To seek help with patience and prayer. So we have to learn from him to be patient. And this is so difficult. Could you imagine a young child that I cannot even fathom what to go through, that your child goes missing and you have no idea where your child is, and you just wonder what happened. Where is he? Is he okay? All of these things. But he knew that Allah is the watcher over all things, and that Allah will sustain Yusuf and will help him through this trial. So he says he lamented his separation from Yusuf in private, with only Allah as his audience, saying, "My beloved Yusuf, whom I loved more than anyone, has been stolen from me. My beloved Yusuf, for whom among all my children I had such great hopes, was stolen from me. My beloved Yusuf, who used to keep me company in my loneliness, has been stolen from me. O my beloved Yusuf, if I could only know upon which mountain they have thrown you, or in which sea. O my beloved Yusuf, if only I could have been with you, so that what has befallen you had instead befallen on me." This is the love of a father for his child, a love of a parent for their child. They would rather harm come to them than harm come to their son. And they only think about the well-being of their children. So when Yusuf woke up, he was relieved that he's finally out of this well. But now he's captive. He's in another situation. So he told them, like, "What are you doing with me? Why am I in this cage? What are you doing? I'm a free person," and this. They didn't give into that at all. They had their idea that they want to sell him. So from narrations, it says about 18 days later, at the slave market in Egypt, the caravan drivers wanted to sell Yusuf as quickly as possible, so they didn't get exposure that they were the boys' kidnappers. So they just wanted to get rid of Yusuf and take some money. If they held him longer, the chances were higher that someone would recognize him and that they would get caught and they would lose their money and also be in trouble. So they didn't want to be caught as kidnappers. So the first person to show interest in Yusuf, they said, was a noble person whom everyone referred to as Aziz. Aziz is someone from the noble character, or either someone is working in government position with respect. In that time, that's what they called them. So he asked the price for Yusuf, and they said they would take 20 silver pieces for Yusuf. She said, "Right, this is a really good deal. 20 silver pieces was the same in Egyptian law. It says the restitution, that if someone accidentally killed someone's dog, their hunting dog, they would pay 20 silver pieces. So he paid them quickly. He said, "Oh, this is a good deal. I pay you." So he thought to himself, that these people, they're making a big mistake. They could have gotten a lot more for this, but they sold him for the price of someone accidentally kills a dog. But he said, "It's my gain. I got a good deal, and I just gave them whatever they asked for, and that's it." So on the way home, this Aziz, he's talking with Yusuf, and he had a hunch that he was a noble child. And he was talking with him. He saw that he's good-natured, and he seems to come from very noble family. And when they arrived at his house, his wife came to greet her husband. She came out to greet Aziz. Said she was very beautiful, dressed in very nice clothes. Yet the Aziz, he didn't take much notice to her. He didn't pay any attention to her. And he introduced her to Yusuf and said, "Put him in a place of honor. Honor him in our household. In the future, maybe he will benefit us, or we can take him as a son." They didn't have any children, so he hoped that Yusuf could fill this void in his wife's life because she wanted a child. So now the next chapter in Yusuf's life starts, because he is no longer with his family and he is with this new family. So He says Allah established Yusuf in the land of Egypt, and to prepare that promise that he fulfilled to him, that he would be in a good position and he would reunite with his brothers and these things. Yusuf's brothers and the caravan drivers had abused him and used him to reach their own short-sighted goals. All the while, Allah reigned supreme over his affairs, turning their efforts to push Yusuf down into the very means for lifting him up. So Yusuf's brothers tried to get rid of him, to throw him down in the well and put him in the lowest position they could get. But this led him to something great, for Allah to elevate him to a high position. Sometimes we go through something and we think this is the worst thing we can go through, but sometimes it paves the way for something great. For example, from my own life, I was getting in trouble when I was a youth. But if I did not go to that trial that I went through of going to that prison, I wouldn't be where I am now. I wouldn't have learned about Islam. I wouldn't have accepted Islam. I wouldn't have went to study. I wouldn't have done many of those things. And almost everyone I know that stayed home, that did not go to prison or something, they're all dead. They have died from drugs. They have died from gangs. They have died from car accidents. I have almost everyone I know from my childhood, they are all dead. So I even had one person that was still alive said that you were saved by going to that place. That place saved you, because if not, you would have been dead like the rest of these people. And I was asking, I said, who was dead? He said, I don't even want to tell you. It's so many people that I just rather leave it. And you don't even know how many people. I know some of them, but it's so many of them. So sometimes you go through some trial. This is like the worst. I'm in this place. Like, what do I do? But that place prepares you for a great thing. Sometimes we are in a job. We don't like it. We get fired from that job. We get let go. It's such a big trial. They have left me without a job. They did wrong with me. I don't have anything. But we would have never went and searched for another job because we were complacent in that job. We were okay with that and we settled for that. But losing that job made us find another job that is even better. Someone else comes and says, you're not working, I have a better position for you, and I'll give you this and this and that. And you got twice as much as you were getting before, and you were able to do more good things. So sometimes you go through something, but to prepare you for something else. As a saying, they say that, God doesn't close one door without opening another for you. Yusuf lived the next 9 years in that house with Aziz until he reached the puberty. The wife of Aziz, Zaliha, she loved him. She nurtured him as a mother. But when he entered adulthood, he became more and more handsome. And her husband's indifference to her was really weighing on her shoulders. So she began to look at Yusuf with a different eye. Her feelings escalated for Yusuf over those years. Sometimes this can happen in one's marriage. People married a long time. They are not paying attention to each other anymore, and they're just. I remember my mother used to say, her current husband now, she would say, "Oh, how do I look?" And he says, "Oh, you look great," but he never looked. He's down on the phone or something, or in a book or something, and he never looked up to look and say, "Oh, you look great." Don't pay attention. And we see this Aziz, he was not paying attention to his wife. And we cannot neglect the other person's needs, or they may be tempted to fulfill them elsewhere. Na'udhu billah. Maybe go and fulfill their needs in a forbidden way. This goes both ways. Husband neglects the wife, doesn't pay attention to her, doesn't look at her, doesn't treat her nice, doesn't compliment her. She starts looking other places, maybe. Maybe someone else is complimenting her. Same thing. The wife does not pay attention to husband, does not take, give him any attention. Husband's like, I have needs. Maybe he goes, looks other place. So this happens. So his wife was not getting attention. So she's looking at Yusuf now. So we have to try to keep a close relationship and, not draw further away from each other. We have to try to spend more time together with our one-on-one time with our spouses. Maybe travel together, do things together. We have to find ways to keep the relationship alive and well and, prosperous, to keep that connection with one another and don't let each other drift too far apart from each other. It can happen. When you notice it, you have to notice it and say, we are drifting apart. We need to reconnect and, build our relationship stronger. So anyhow, the husband is neglecting his wife. Now she's looking at Yusuf. So her feelings kept escalating for him over the years. And he says, Yusuf is not looking at her in this way. He's fearing Allah, keeping his eyes, toward the ground. Like when we're in these cities, we notice Najaf or Karbala, for example, it's not looking at women. Women walk with men is looking other way. Most they should be. Or women come in elevator, we turn. We don't look. We just turn and then they continue on. We don't get in elevator with them here. So it says Yusuf is not looking at her in that way. So when Yusuf reached age of 18, he's in his prime years. Allah gave him good judgment, knowledge, all for those things, the good actions that he has done. And the book says physically too, he reached full maturity. So Zuleika, Zaliha, she is now plotting on him to seduce him. Na'udhu billah. So she chose a time when her husband was away and she sent all of her other servants away. So now only her and Yusuf in the house. So she locked the door and she put nice clothes and jewelry on and she's calling Yusuf, come to me. He says, A'udhu billah, I seek refuge in Allah. I'm from a family that does not do these type of things. We don't do fornication. We don't do zina. He said, in Allah do I seek refuge. My master gave me a place of honor in your household. Those who do wrong by their masters never succeed. He spoke wisely with double meaning. At once admonishing himself of his duty to Allah, who had blessed him with so much, and reminding her the need for chastity and loyalty to her husband. But she was in that moment, he said, fell on deaf ears. So she tells Yusuf, she says, pick up your gaze, you're looking down. Allah tells us to lower our gaze, right? So Yusuf is lowering his gaze. She said, lift your gaze and look at me. He said, I'm afraid maybe I will go blind. Allah will take my sight if I look at something haram. And look at you in this way. She said, oh, your eyes are very beautiful. He said, in my grave, they will be the first part of my body to spill their fluid onto my cheeks. Reminding her that this apparent look now, we will all go to grave and have to answer for our deeds. We may look good now, but we will be ugly in our graves maybe. She said, how sweet is your smell? He said, if you could only smell my decaying body 3 days after I have died, you would run away from me. She said, why don't you come close to me? He said, by refraining thus, I hope to come close to my Lord. If I come close to you, I'm getting closer to Shaitan. I want to stay away from you and go closer to my Lord. What you are calling me to is away from Allah. She said, my bed has silk, so stand up and fulfill my needs. She's telling him to come to her bed. Yusuf turned her away for the fear of his Lord, for fear of Allah. Whereas many people today, if they're in that same situation, they are offered that same offer. The lady is saying, come to my bed, they'll be running towards that bed. Astaghfirullah. We have to take example of Yusuf, where he always kept Allah in remembrance, and he was fearful of Allah's displeasure, or fearful of Allah's wrath. Later, we see in the story, he said, the prison is more dear to me than what they are calling me to. How many people today would say that? If the beautiful lady is calling them, they are running toward them. We have to look for the story of Yusuf and remember the taqwa of Yusuf, that even the prison is better than doing this action unlawfully. She said, I will turn you, he said, I will lose my place in paradise if I listen to you and do what you want. So she said, I will turn you over to those people my husband have that torture people. She is threatening him now. He said, my Lord will protect me. She was unyielding, the book says, and she started advancing towards him. So he rushed away from her, and his eyes fell on her idol. She had a household idol. And it says that it had a cloth over the face of the idol. So Yusuf said, why did you do that? Pointing at the idol. She said, I would be ashamed if my idol saw us today. So he admonished her and said, is it right that you should feel ashamed before the one who neither hears or sees, nor comprehends, nor eats, nor drinks? Yet I should not feel ashamed before one who created humans, mankind, and taught them. It was not that Yusuf wasn't attracted to her. She was beautiful and he was young. He says, just as she desired him, it would have been natural for him to desire her if he had not seen Allah's proof. He has seen Allah's proof. He is Ma'soom. He is Nabi Allah, Yusuf, a messenger of Allah, a prophet of Allah. So he had clarity and yaqeen. He knew that the reality of the sin, that it is, he sees behind the sin. He sees the result of the sin. Whereas we see something very appealing. This may seem very nice to us, that we would want to go towards that lady, but he saw the reality of that sin. It's like a piece of rotten food. We would never want to pick a piece of rotten fish that has been sitting for 1 week in the garbage and take it and eat it. We would say disgusting and throw it on the ground. We would never even want to touch it. But this is how they see sin. They see the displeasure of Allah in this way. They see the reality. They know the outcome of sin is something disgusting. And if we know the outcomes of the sin, we can remember those sins. But it takes a lot of discipline, a lot of seeking knowledge, a lot of acting on knowledge, and a lot of discipline on ourselves. Like we do in Ramadan, we have desire. We have desire to eat, we have desire to drink, but we suppress those desires. So we have to suppress it builds us to suppress our desires for sins, to keep away from them. It says that one tradition tells us Allah will use Yusuf on Day of Judgment to argue against those men who believe because they were so handsome, it justified that they were promiscuous with women. Allah will bring Yusuf, alayhi salam, and he will ask them, are you more handsome than Yusuf? We made him handsome and he was not tempted. And you were less handsome than him and you were you were using this excuse. So Allah saved Yusuf from the evil desire and this indecency, and he was Allah's servant. This is Quran 12:24. It says, We'll end with this part. It says, in a fit of desperation, Zulaykha threw herself at Yusuf. He turned and ran for the door, and she chased him. When he reached the main gate, he tried to unlock the door, and she caught hold of his tunic, or his abba, and tried dragging him back into the house. And his tunic ripped and was torn completely off of his body. And just as the door opened, and there at the threshold of the door was the Zulaykha's husband, Aziz, seeing all of this commotion and what is going on. So we have run out of time, but in the next week, inshallah, we will find out what happened with Yusuf alayhi salam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Jazakallah.
Alhamdulillah, all the connection held pretty good, I think so.
Yeah, this whole session went very long.
Okay, alhamdulillah, so it didn't cut me off. Good. Okay. Pray for all of you and keep me in your prayer as well.
Inshallah, inshallah.
Thank you so much.
And I will see everyone next week, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Fi amanillah.
Fi aman Allah.
Assalamu alaikum.